welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from one fan's real, honest perspective. I'm your host, Derek. This is episode 56. This is the Week 4 preview episode where the Cincinnati Bengals, 0-3, winless so far, but still brimming with optimism, go on the road to Charlotte and take on the Carolina Panthers and Andy Dalton. They're coming in off their first win of the season at 1-2. They're ready to protect the bank at Bank of America Stadium down in Charlotte. So this is a big game for both teams. We're going to do a quick preview of this game to get you ready for this football Sunday. In our last episode, we talked about how the Bengals fell on their face and embarrassed themselves on Monday Night Football national TV audience. I don't think very many people were watching that Bills-Jaguars game, and unfortunately, they got to see Jaden Daniels' coming out party, rookie quarterback for the Washington Commanders, pick apart the Bengals defense all night long. So that game is in the rearview mirror. Bengals had a short week. The game was on Monday, so they only got 6 days to get ready for this Sunday matchup against these Panthers. And these Panthers are not to be taken lightly. First two games, they got blown away, but I think they only scored like 13 points in the first two games. But then last game, Panthers scored 36 points to defeat the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. They went in and beat up on Antonio Pierce's team. Andy Dalton, first quarterback in the league to go for over 300 yards passing, right before Joe Burrow did it on Monday night, but Andy Dalton was the first one to do it. We'll talk about the biggest thing outside of the Andy Dalton Bengals, but Andy Dalton's played the Bengals. This will be his fourth time going up against the Bengals, so he's 2-1 already. He played them with the Cowboys, the Bears, and the Saints, and he's 2-1. I think he lost with the Saints down in New Orleans, but other than that, the injuries are going to be the biggest storyline in this game. We know Trent Brown, right tackle for the Bengals, number 77, he's going to be out for the rest of the season with a torn patellar tendon. They put him on injured reserve for the rest of the season, so he's officially out. We saw him get carted off the field. Didn't look good. Zach Taylor immediately after the game said, didn't look good. That's how you know it wasn't good. But that means that the rookie first-round pick, Amarius Mims, number 71, is going to be making his first start in the NFL. Comes under, not the best circumstances. You don't want to necessarily be coming in because some guy is injured. But I think a lot of fans had anticipated at some point in this season, it was likely that Amarius Mims would take over either due to injury or maybe if Trent Brown just wasn't playing that well for whatever reason, they could put this rookie in and see what he could do. But now they don't really have any choice. Amarius Mims, he's going to be the next man up, so we're going to see what he looks like in his first full game. I mean, he got almost a little bit over half of the game on Monday Night Football. So he got a pretty decent sample size, but now that he's got a full week to prepare as the starter running with that first string offense, hopefully he can iron out any of the, rookie mistakes you might have in your first couple games. I know when he talks to the media, he always is very humble and hard on himself, saying that, he's got high standards, high expectations for himself. So he never says he thought he played well. And I mean, he didn't play like amazing. He played okay. But he was like, I could play a lot better than that. So hopefully he's right and he'll show us all that talent that, he's billed to have in that first round body. Hopefully we'll be able to see that. On the Panthers side, they're also battling injuries on their offensive line. Panthers signed two key free agents in the offseason. They signed Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. Both of those guys were on the injury list for the Panthers this week. Damian Lewis tore his UCL, which is the ulnar collateral ligament, something in your elbow, basically a ligament in his elbow. He's not going to be able to play in this game. He was talking about how he was trying to fight through it, But torn ligament elbow, he's going to be out. May require surgery, but he's definitely out for this game against the Bengals. That's all that really matters. The other guard, actually, no, he's listed as a tackle. I thought he was playing guard. Anyway, Robert Hunt, he was the signing from the Dolphins. He had a hip this week. He's limited, questionable going into the game. And the big receiving target, or one of the major receiving targets for Andy Dalton, actually both top receiving targets for Andy Dalton, got injured from last week. So Adam Thielen, the Panthers' number one wide receiver, he caught a touchdown pass from Andy Dalton, but he pulled his hamstring while he was catching it. Like he extended out, but while he went to extend and catch the touchdown pass, he pulled his hamstring. He's laying, I don't know why I'm laughing, but he was laying in the end zone, like clutching his hamstring and limping off. So he went to the injured reserve. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. So that's a pretty severe hamstring pull. And then the other top receiver for the Panthers, Deontay Johnson, formerly played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bengals fans should remember him. He, surprisingly, he had a career high of yardage of 122 yards. For as long, Deontay Johnson's been in the league. I think this is like his 8th or 9th season in the league. He's had a lot of catches, a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, but his career high for a single game was last week with 122 yards. So that's kind of surprising. That I guess he's just what you would refer to as the quintessential possession receiver, maybe. Like he's good at getting open, getting separations in short yardage, but doesn't necessarily have like top end, take the top off 60 yards down the field speed, or something where he's going to like break out of a bunch of tackles and make a bunch of people miss and pick up a bunch of yak yards. But if those two receivers are out for the Panthers, obviously that's good news for the Bengals, because their receiving core isn't really what I would call great, especially with those two guys out. They're going to have a bunch of rookies, second year players, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo. I think they still have Terrace Marshall Jr. Actually, Terrace Marshall Jr., they released him. I think he might be on a different team now. So I don't know who Andy Dalton is going to be throwing to out there, but that hopefully will slow down the Red Rifles' charge at the Bengals defense, because the Bengals defense, switching back over to their injury statuses, again, they're going to be without their top two interior defensive linemen, most likely. BJ Hill is doubtful for the game, but he didn't practice all week. Again, same as last week, and he was doubtful last week. I don't know why they just don't call him out, but he's doubtful. And then Sheldon Rankins, similar situation as last week, didn't practice with a hamstring all week, and he is out officially. I would expect BJ Hill to be out also, so they're going to have another game with Zach Carter and J. Tufele and Lawrence Guy off the couch, and whoever else they can get in there, maybe Dominique Davis. But it's a lot of backups on the Bengals defensive line. The only one who was doing well was Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson was also on the injury list this week. He was battling some kind of an illness. They didn't specify what kind of an illness it was, but Trey Hendrickson did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. Then he got a full practice in Friday. He doesn't have any kind of injury designation, so he should be good to go. Hopefully it was nothing too severe, like any kind of, respiratory infection or something that's going to cause Trey Hendrickson to, get fatigued in the game quicker. We saw him coming in and out of the game. Actually, when I looked at the snaps, he played a decent amount of snaps, at more snaps on the defensive line than Sam Hubbard or anybody else. So I can't really fault him for that, but he's getting a little bit fatigued in that game. Monday, he's getting close to 30, 29. So hopefully this illness doesn't slow him down too much, because he might be, outside of like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson might be the most important player for the Bengals, especially on defense. He's their most important player because he's the only player that's getting any kind of a pass rush. And he's getting exceptional win rates. If you look at ESPN pass rush win rate, Trey Hendrickson is leading the league, or he's number 2. I haven't looked recently, but he was at the number 1 spot in the entire league. The only problem is he's only one guy. The other 3 guys in the Bengals are barely getting any pressure at all. So what usually happens is the opposing team's quarterback, as long as they get away from Trey Hendrickson, nobody else is really threatening at all. So they can just keep one eye on Trey Hendrickson, get away from him, they're good to go. Apparently Sam Hubbard, they said in training camp he had a knee injury. Then Lou Anarumo in his press conference this week said that Sam Hubbard had been actually dealing with a grade 3 hamstring injury. And so I don't know if it was actually a hamstring the whole time, but Sam Hubbard told Dan Horde on the Bengals radio show that he had he didn't specify that it was a hamstring, but his injury that he's been dealing with is something that's going to linger throughout the season, and he'll just have to deal with it. And that may explain why we haven't seen a lot of explosiveness out of Sam Hubbard, but he's definitely not looking like the Sam Hubbard of old that we know and love. I know he's not going to be able to be taking any 99-yard fumble recoveries all the way back. But not that grades really matter, but out of 200 defensive ends, I think Sam Hubbard's rated 200. So not looking so great. We're going to have to figure out some way to get a pass rush. Lou Anarumo, he may have to change up the scheme now that teams, they've been holding things. We said Bengals were holding back all their good plays and all their good schemes during the preseason. They were just holding those back for the regular season. That's why they lost all those games. But now the regular season has started. There's tape out there. The other teams, like the Panthers, are going to be able to look at what the Bengals have been doing these first 3 weeks, figure out, how to basically stop them, shut them down, whatever they have been successful with. That's what they're going to game plan against. And vice versa, obviously. Not to say that the Panthers are an unbeatable team, but I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not going to lie. This game should have been no question, mark it up as a win. Before the season started, I figured I wouldn't even have any cause for concern at all. And so, to my surprise, the Bengals are still favored in this game. At the moment, they're still 4.5-point favorites on the road against a team that has one more victory than they do. But that just goes to show how much respect the Bengals still have in the league for whatever reason. I mean, Bengals have been favored, except for the Chiefs game. They weren't favored in the Chiefs game. But the other two games against the Patriots and the Commanders, they were big-time favorites at home, and they ended up losing. This one, they're favored on the road, and I hope they are able to take care of business. And it may, like I said, it may be a factor of the Panthers aren't very good. They've got a lot of injuries. Both teams are injured. Panthers also have a cornerback, a defensive tackle out. Lonnie Johnson and Shai Tuttle both going to be out. And a defensive tackle, Ashawn Robinson, with a knee. He got a limited practice on Friday. He's going to be questionable. So both teams are a little bit banged up. That's how you know it's, the middle of the season when both teams have tons of players on their injury report. Looking at the Bengals, there's anybody that I missed. Oh, Dijon Anthony did not practice on Friday. He had some kind of an illness, and he's questionable for the game. So hopefully there's not any kind of illness going around the Bengals locker room. But other than that, everybody else is looking good. Tanner Hudson, tight end, is going to be questionable for the game. He might be able to come back. But with Eric All and Mike Gesicki and Drew Sample, they didn't really look like they were missing Tanner Hudson too badly. But I guess it never hurts to get some more help out there. Tanner Hudson is actually their backup long snapper. So I think that's one of the reasons why they need to keep Tanner Hudson active on game day, is because we know how critical a long snapper can be. Offensively for the Bengals, hopefully Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are able to continue that connection right where they left off with last week, where Jamar had 2 touchdowns. Joe Burrow in the press conference said how he was surprised that they had single high safety one-on-one against Jamar Chase. He doesn't expect to see that kind of coverage a lot going forward, and I wouldn't either. I was confused why the Commanders would play that kind of defense against Jamar Chase and basically let him score touchdowns against them. But we'll have to see. It's not really that much fun as a Bengals fan to watch Jamar Chase get double covered by the defense, but that should mean that the tight ends and other players will have more of an advantage. So T. Higgins, Andre Yosivach, maybe even Jermaine Burton can get in there. I know who won't be getting there in there is probably going to be Trenton Irwin or Charlie Jones. Remember that guy? I think he's still on the roster, but he didn't get to do any punt returns last game because defense didn't even force a punt once. So Charlie Jones, I don't even know if maybe he got in one play on offense, but I think we might see more Chase Brown in this game. He's looked good every time he's gotten in the game, gotten a chance to touch the ball. He's looked explosive, quick, hitting the hole. Not that Zach Moss has looked bad, but I would say Chase Brown has earned more opportunities to touch the ball. He hasn't done anything to my eye to prevent him from getting on the field more, I should say. But there's only so many snaps to go around. The Bengals only use one running back in formation at a time, so you can only have one of those guys on the field. It's either got to be Moss or Brown, but I'd probably like to see it split more 50-50 because I think Chase Brown has more speed just in general. He has more explosive potential. But I guess that's, so tempting. If you see a guy with lots of speed, you're already thinking like Saquon Barkley last week with the 65-yard touchdown. Oh, maybe that could be Chase Brown. But those are rare type of runs. It's more important to get the in between the tackles, short yardage, 5 yards or whatever. Not that Chase Brown can't do that too, but he's a little bit smaller than Zach Moss. But it should probably be a high-scoring game just because both of these defenses are not very good. The offenses are probably on a whole better than the defenses, but it's hard to say. I mean, like the Panthers aren't supposed to be good, but the Bengals defense isn't very good. So we'll just have to see. I am optimistic, but really the Bengals, I know it's not like technically not a must-win game, but since 1990 or whatever it was, only 4 teams have started off 0-3 and made the playoffs, and only one team has started 0-4 and made it to the playoffs. And that was the 1992 San Diego Chargers. So the odds are not in the Bengals' favor if they lose this game. They got to win this game somehow, some way. I don't care how they have to do it. I don't care if it is the Panthers or the Chiefs or whoever it is. Doesn't matter. Just get a win. That's all they need to worry about. I'm not going to panic and say that if they lose this game, the season is over or anything, but I'm going to be deeply disturbed. As I think I would be well within my rights to be upset. If you told me they went 0-4 and lost to the Panthers, it can't happen. Can't let it happen. If it does happen, there's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blame to go around. So I don't even want to think that way. They're going to win the game. Everything will be right where it was, basically at the same point last year. Last year, they started off 1-3. This year, they can get back to 1. Not that last year was a great start necessarily, but they could get back on the right track with a win this week. That's all they got to worry about. Stay positive. So the game's going to be on Fox this week. It's going to be Kevin Kugler, Daryl Johnston, and Laura Oakman calling the game. So not the top broadcasting crew, but what would you really expect for Bengals Panthers at this point? Last time these two teams met, that was a big game for Joe Mixon. Bengals won 42-21, but I think they jumped out to like a 35-0 lead or something like that. And then Panthers got some touchdowns in garbage time. But Panthers got destroyed last time they came to Cincinnati. So hopefully none of those guys were on that team and remember what happened 2 years ago, and they're not looking for revenge this time. Again, think it positive. All positive. So I'm going to call this a win for the Bengals on an Evan McPherson field goal, let's say 56 yards at the end of the game to win by 3. Because it's going to be a tie game. He'll break the tie, win by 3 for the Bengals in Charlotte. And we can all breathe a sigh of relief as the season gets back on track. That's the plan, at least. So come back in the next episode and we'll break everything down. But don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, do all the stuff, and send me an email, bengalbitespodcast@gmail.com, if you've got any comments, questions, corrections, anything like that to make the show better. I'll read it on the podcast. But until next time, I'm going to leave you with a hooday and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.